Welcome r/EntitledParents. How my entitled aunt and cousin ruined my 10th birthday. My aunt, dad's sister, has always been the textbook entitled bitch. When I was a kid, she never missed an opportunity to make me feel like garbage. From thinly veiled insults to outright verbal and emotional abuse, she threw what she could at me in an attempt to break me. Of course, the disgust she felt for me and the faults she found in my dad's parenting never stopped her from mooching stuff off of him or asking him for favors without ever giving anything in return. She and her husband considered their son to be a gift from the heavens, and he too grew up to be a narcissistic bully who loved to torment me, even though I was 7 years younger than him. My mom passed when I was 1 year old, and both my and grandmother had been abusive to her as well. But that's another tale for another time. This is about the time she, along with her son, ruined my 10th birthday. This incident resulted in me being put off of birthdays and deciding to never celebrate them again. I just couldn't see them as a cause for celebration. My entire extended family, which included the said aunt, uncle, and cousin along with some other relatives, were at our home, and my dad and stepmom had gone out to run some errands. My cousin had invited some of his friends over, even though my dad and stepmom didn't know them. My dad allowed them to come after my aunt whined incessantly about how her son would be bored if his friends were not there. I remember sitting in my room and playing with my dog. I knew my cousin would be down there, and I usually did what I could to avoid him. At that time I suffered from a pretty bad stutter, and when I was upset or angry, it only got worse. This is something my cousin loved to make fun of, and of course, my birthday would be no different. He demanded that I come downstairs to talk to his friends. When I refused, his mother told me to stop being rude and do as I was told. I was a powerless kid, so I really had no other choice. I went down to the living room and my cousin introduced me to his buddies in his usual condescending way. As the birthday girl, he handed me a novel and told me to read out loud. I tried to read properly, but failed. I was surrounded with judgmental stares, and it made me nervous. I stuttered, which is exactly what my cousin was hoping for. He and his friends began to snicker. I got angry and stopped reading. Cousin called me a freak. His friends looked at me as though I was on display at a zoo exhibit. I wanted to prove them wrong, that I wasn't a freak, that I could read. I tried reading again. This time, on account of me being angry, the stutter was much worse. My cousin decided to mock my stutter and all but one of his friends roared with laughter. The one that didn't actually noticed my tears and told the other to knock it off. He asked if I was okay. My cousin told him not to bother, it's just a joke, and that I was just an oversensitive baby. My rage was boiling over, and I threw the book at my cousin's face and stomped out. My aunt had seen what had happened and decided to pull me by my hair and drag me back to the living room. She told me to apologize to my cousin. I refused. She told me I needed to be taught a lesson for being a brat. I tried to tell her what had happened. She chuckled and said, "So what? He's your cousin and her older than you. You need to respect him. Now apologize." I refused again, this time with a no. "I hate you. I hate all of you." All the while crying and shaking with anger. This didn't sit well with aunt, and she slapped me before asking me why I didn't just die in the womb. She told me I was a troublemaker just like my mother had been. That she knew the day I was born that there was something wrong with me. That an evil bitch like my mother couldn't possibly produce a normal kid. This was it. I balled up my fist and connected it to my aunt's face. I punched that bitch so hard, I busted her lip. By now, all the other relatives had heard the commotion and had gathered in the living room. The moment my fist connected with my aunt is when my dad and stepmom walked in through the front door. The aunt started fake crying. She berated my father for not raising me right and went on and on about how I was a violent, ill-mannered brat etc etc. The other relatives too expressed their disappointment in me. My dad asked me what the hell I thought I was doing. I tried to tell him what my cousin had done and what my aunt had said about my mother. Unfortunately, my stutter reared its ugly head again and all that came out of my mouth was gibberish. My tears were flowing again. In the meantime, my cousin had decided to take all his friends and bail. I was punished for my beastly conduct. My birthday celebration was cancelled. My dad called my friends and asked them not to come over. I didn't cut any cake. The presents I was to receive from my parents were stocked away. I was banished to my room and stayed there for the rest of the day. I ate lunch and dinner alone. The next morning, no one spoke to me. I was given my breakfast platter which I ate in my room. That afternoon, my cousin's friend, the one who had told them to stop bullying me, came over. He told my dad what my cousin had done and what my aunt had said. My dad sat me down and apologized to me, but added that it was still wrong of me to punch my aunt. I just sat there silently. I was emotionally numb. My dad kept telling me he loved me and that he was sorry. I just coldly stated at him. My stepmom suggested a belated birthday celebration. I refused. I told them I didn't want a birthday party and that I wouldn't celebrate my birthday ever again. I kept my word. Every year since that day, my parents would ask me what I wanted for my birthday and I always replied nothing at all. I would ask them not to get any cakes and not to invite any guests. The day I was born now meant nothing to me. Even now, after all these years, I don't celebrate my birthday. Instead, I celebrate the day I landed the job that enabled me to move away from my family and start a new life. I consider it the day of my rebirth. It was the day I was able to leave all the pain and anger behind and could plan for a life that I would live on my own terms. My aunt and uncle's shitty parenting ended up costing them dearly. If you wanna know what became of them, do let me know in the comments. It's pretty satisfying. Please reconsider your boycott on birthdays. Every celebration you miss is a victory for your vicious aunt and a continual reminder that she holds control over you even now. Break the cycle. P.S. I'd like to know what happened to your cousin's friend. Let him be a reminder that there is still some decency in the world. I'm also glad your father made some amends after he heard the facts, but sad that he didn't grasp the awfulness of his sister and figure out there were other factors at play. Also, throwing books and punching people, no matter how awful, does show some lack of self-control. I'm assuming you're past that now. This is horrible. I feel sick. That bitch is a monster. She was abusive, and she abused you. There's no denying it that she abused you, and her son was copying her behavior. He was bullying you, and making fun of your stutter is why people stutter in the first place. You never deserved that. You had every right to pop that bitch. She slaps you, and abuses you, and talks shit about your dead mom. You freaking get her back. Good on you for doing that. It's so sad that you now have a tainted view of your birthday. Honestly, don't let people's shit ruin it. You freaking deserve to get gifts and have the day all about you and your choices. You have the right to be celebrated. Sounds like a long time ago. Maybe it's time to let it go. Speaking from a perspective of my unbelievably abusive childhood, healing starts with letting things go. You have set up a scenario which forces you to remember that experience year after year, if not week after week. At some point, consider accepting that there are assholes in the world and decide that their stupid actions should not, cannot, and will not ruin your life. I just took a look at your profile to see if you posted the story about your aunt getting her comeuppance, and holy shit, your family is insane. Good on you for getting out of there and moving away from their shit existence. Having a better life without them is truly the sweetest revenge. I'm so sad to hear this story. Stuff like your aunt said can be truly damaging for a 10-year-old child, and you were totally in the right to hit her. I'm glad you found something new to celebrate though. I can't wait to hear what happened to the aunt and uncle. Thank God for the cousin's friend who not only took up for you, but confronted your father with the truth of the situation. You would have been lost without his courage and integrity. I hope good things have come his way. Please let us know what the upshot of all of this has been. I'm so glad you got away from these awful people. I know this is probably painful, but it's great that you stood your ground. Your dad knew he fucked up. He knew how much his behavior was harmful to you, and how he chose his own fucking inclination towards civility over the happiness over his child. From the way you described it, he apologized over and over because he knew he had no chance of forgiveness. He ripped out your trust in adults and basically told you that it was okay for you to be mistreated, but not okay for you to fight back. I hope that pain permeates throughout his entire soul these days. You stood up for yourself, and I think that matters a hell of a lot. That kind of mistrust can't be forgiven lightly, and I hope your new life fulfills you. A lot of people take that kind of abuse and they accept apologies, but I don't think moments like that can be forgiven with a new cake. I'm happy that you have a better situation now. I read both posts and it really made me hate your aunt and some other relatives of yours. Your dad and stepmom probably tried to do the best they could in that situation. It must have been hard for them too, to be constantly told how their kid is a failure and a freak, just for being a girl. And it sure was hard for you and your dad to be reminded all the time of the hatred they felt towards your mother, and did not even want to let her rest in peace. I can imagine you feel some kind of pride towards your dad for trying his best to raise you without your mother. And the mistakes he allowed to happen were probably due to his wish to keep the family close, and never lost hope that it would change for the better. And I'm sure he knew that one day you would prove all of your mean family members that you are no failure and would turn out to be better in every aspect than your male cousin. Even though I don't know you, it makes me sad that your life was so tough. It also makes me happy to hear that you have risen above all of that, proven to be the better person, and are a happy person now. Keep it up and all the best. So I'd just like to point out that, while you claim to now be over this event and have started fresh, the fact you still don't celebrate birthdays tells us differently. You should work on gaining that back for yourself. Being able to celebrate your birthday is a wonderful thing, and it is a day to celebrate oneself, which many people honestly don't do often enough. Being able to celebrate it will also allow you to truly let go of any ties to that traumatic experience and be truly free. Truly unfortunate that you had to deal with all this nonsense. Glad to know you're doing better in life now.